musician,
long-distance kayaker,
a businessman,
she looks after animals,
artist,
author.
We interview remarkable people.
They're talented in so many different areas.
You're listening to The Dialogue.
89.7 FM Eastside Radio.
You're listening to 89.7 FM Eastside Radio. This is Natasha and The Dialogue Show, where I interview remarkable people. On the show today, I have Clive Burcham, who is a business impactor and a social entrepreneur. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, I love the fact that you've done so much media. You've been involved in media and on air and off air and creative literally since you were 15 and a half, I think it was, when you decided to leave home.
Yes, I've always enjoyed the creativity associated with media.
What about, I mean, there's a creative element, but I mean it's a communication tool. And what about that communication that kind of excites you?
I'd say having an impact on somebody through, I mean, I was always using visual media, but impacting someone emotionally in their conscious or subconscious is a very powerful thing.
You've been very successful as a businessman, not only as a businessman, but also obviously as a social impactor and as a social entrepreneur. Did you ever imagine when you were kind of growing up that would be your path and that you would actually be, I'm going to use the term strangely, somebody, because, you know, you have gravitas. People, know who you are within that business context. Was that something that was kind of in the back of your head? Did you think I'm going to grow up and be somebody?
I thought I was going to be a farmer, but my grandfather said I wouldn't be a good farmer, and that what led me to get a job at the TV station, that and other things. But I remember driving up and down the paddocks on the tractor, which was my weekend job, just thinking I want to be successful at whatever I did.
Why were you not going to be a good farmer?
I don't know, and unfortunately passed away and I never got to find out, but I don't know.
Maybe he saw bigger things for you than farming. I mean, farming's a hard life.
Yeah, and he was a very successful farmer himself, so possibly, but I'm really not sure. I think maybe I drove his tractors too fast.
Do you have a little bit of that thrill seeker inside you?
In one part, I'm really scared. Like I'm a cyclist, and I'm so scared to go on the Sydney roads. I used to ride a couple of 100 kilometres a week, but I don't anymore. So in that respect, I'm really scared because I'm scared that my children will lose me. But then again, I race my car on a racetrack sometimes.
Right. So you have a bit of risk. You like a bit of risk. You like a little bit of adrenaline, but you like to do it in a sort of quite controlled environment. Yes.
When you speak to my banker, he says that I fly close to the wind.
Right. Do you think that your businesses take on that personality as well? So, I mean, you've got sort of 2-3 businesses that are operating at the same time, but the one that you've had for quite a long time is the Conscious Organization, and that you've started in America, and that is sort of digitally creative.
Yeah. The business has a reputation of always changing and being on the edge. The difficulty with that is that we have to educate people to the edge, and then everybody else catches up, and we've got to move on again. But so I think that's an impatience that I have, but also a curiosity that my team has.
You went to school and were, in your own words, really, well, I think maybe I'll just change the words, but you were a little shit.
Yes.
At school.
Yeah.
You were the youngest of 3 siblings.
Yes.
You had a great brain, but were just the naughty child and quite cheeky and quite sort of otherwise. You said that you actually still like that as an adult.
Yeah, and I think that's reflected in our businesses. Like my business plan for the Conscience Organisation was invoice more than I spend or we spend, stick it to tradition, and don't work with a-holes.
That's beautiful.
And so anything that sticks it to the norm, I'm into. And that's just, again, I don't know why I'm like that, but I'm inquisitive about, different things.
You're listening to 89.7 FM Eastside Radio. This is Natasha and The Dialogue Show, where I interview remarkable people. On the show today, I have Clive Burcham, who is a business impactor and social entrepreneur. So actually, you are an authentic disruptor.
Yes, I could be.
Well, you are, because disruption has become that new term that everybody uses, which just irritates the living daylights out of me, because everyone's trying to disrupt. But there are very few people who actually are true disruptors, and normally those are people who don't like to play within the confines of the rules and the boundaries that have been set before them. And I imagine that is you to an absolute T.
Yeah, how I was in high school is no different to how I am now.
You had a very troubled childhood. Your father died when you were 8.
Yes.
You've had an on and off relationship with your mother where there's been incredible closeness and an incredible distance and I believe some sort of anger and frustration. Tell me why your childhood was so difficult.
I was, sexually, physically, emotionally abused, and that's debilitating platform for someone, or lack of platform or foundation for someone to have stability, which is what all children, I think, crave, is stability. So, I was somewhat tarred with a certain brush, which has ultimately become quite colourful.
That experience for you, which was obviously, multifaceted. It wasn't just one person, it was 2 people, a stepfather who equally was a horrible, violent person. You had some really negative male influences in your life growing up, and no dad. You are now a dad of 2 children. How does that experience for you impact on the way you are as a parent with your children?
Well, luckily for my kids, I'm probably one of the children, and I've always treated them equally, and I consult with them on everything from what I wear to the house that we want to buy, and I check with them that it aligns with them and that they like it. So the way I parent is in a very fair way.
Your children rock your world, though. I mean, I've spoken to you twice, and both times your children are your absolute heart.
Yes, they are.
And you're a single parent.
Yeah.
So it's been a really challenging road. I mean, you've got a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old. You're a single dad. I see beautiful photographs of you cuddling those children to death. You said you all sleep in the same bed.
Yeah. And I shudder to think of that ending. But also, there's delights when your children, move on from season to season. But they are. I drop them off at school every day, and I pick them up every day. So my working hours, which is a blessing to my staff, are usually quite short.
Why would that be a blessing to your staff? Are you a difficult man? Are you a difficult boss?
No, it's not difficult. It's just I think I get annoying when I get bored, and I go around, same as I was at school. I want to chat with people and interact and feel an energy. But I also, I'm big on, at the moment, as an entrepreneur or a business owner or a creative person, you want to express yourself, but also your job is to fix things. So, I don't have a business plan other than to fix the next problem. So I think I probably go around looking for problems, and that pees people off. But not in a way of controversy or anger. It's just I identify something and sit down and deal with it. And anyway, I deal with it very, very quickly. I think, but being a single father and wanting to spend so much time with my kids, I've sharpened my sword in terms of getting things done and communication.
You're listening to 89.7 FM Eastside Radio. This is Natasha and The Dialogue Show, where I interview remarkable people. On the show today, I have Clive Burcham, who is a business impactor and social entrepreneur. Your home life is one with almost no technology, which is bizarre given that your whole business is around technology. I mean, everything about what you do is about technology, and yet you threw your children's iPads, phones, and everything else out the window on a holiday in the car, and then you have no television.
No.
So your children at home, and I believe there are quite a few people. I had Lucy Bloom on the show, and she's done exactly the same thing in her home. No technology allowed.
Yeah.
How does that change the dynamic from families that do have so much technology?
Well, I guess we go back to how it was probably for my mum, where you grow up with no technology. Therefore, it's about communication and engagement with each other in the authentic sense. I get a performance every night, lots of cuddles or whatever it might be, and we sit down and have family chats, and we all sit on the couch in the living room, and we just have a very connected life together. And we're like high level social people. Like this week we've had 4 dinner parties.
Yeah, you love to cook.
I love cooking.
And you said you were such a brilliant cook. I love that. I mean, I said to you, can you cook? And you were like, I am brilliant at cooking. I mean, that's backing yourself.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I've been trained by some of the best Greek people in Australia.
Okay. So you said the lamb is sublime. So
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna work my way to an invite for one of those
Yes.
lambs so that I can steal your recipes. You've had a very controversial and quite public life in terms of the fact that, if you jump onto Google and you have a little look at you, I mean, there's an incident with your ex-wife, which is very well documented, where there was an alcohol issue, and you've also yourself had a small alcohol issue and a car roll and a couple of other things. You said you were going 30 kilometers an hour, but you still managed to roll your car and hit a couple of cars along the way. I mean, those kind of things are played out in the public arena. How does that make you feel? Because it's quite exposing and makes you feel quite vulnerable.
I don't mind. My ex-wife, is let's say victim or a survivor of terrible circumstances, and for what she's been through, she's a good mum, and my kids love her a great deal. And in terms of me getting drunk and rolling a car, I mean, I technically outdid Jodie Mears.
That's true.
In terms of alcohol reading and number of cars I hit. But she outdid me in the fact that she had a better lawyer and she got off scot-free, which I think is absolutely outrageous. So,
and what had happened to you?
I have a breathalyzer in my car for 5 years, which I think is a great invention. And so that's my, my reminder every day how stupid I was. But at that time, I was going through an extraordinary amount of pressure with my business, relationship. I had ironically an altercation with the gentleman who was Jodie Mears' lawyer, where he wrote to one of my clients asking for me to be fired. And obviously there was the divorce, and then on top of that, I deal with my history as a child, like the fact that I'm alive, having lived through those traumatic experiences as a child, is statistically remarkable. But I'm certainly not proud of getting drunk and rolling my car, but it was a pivotal moment and it changed my life.
We were talking earlier about the fact that people who have been through victims of abuse, it's different. Survivors. Thank you.
Yep.
When you've been a survivor of abuse, there is an outcome. There is a statistical outcome that I think you were telling me about. Tell me a little bit about that statistical outcome.
So if you suffer severe loss, physical or sexual abuse, mental abuse, any form of trauma, you have an 80% chance of having a mental health illness when you get older. You also are in the 80 to 90th percentile of being an alcoholic, a drug addict, or even a prostitute. Most prostitutes have suffered abuse at some point, and obviously that's why they return to abusive situations. So I consider myself exceptionally blessed that I have none of those. And I feel so terrible for people. When I see a homeless, even my daughter, when she sees a homeless person, she goes inside. She tells me this story. She went in, saw a homeless guy out the side of a shopping centre. She went in, took the food for kids from Woolworths, took it outside and gave it to the homeless person. I love that because she's socially minded and she steals from Woolworths, who steal from Australian farmers. Yep.
You're listening to 89.7 FM Eastside Radio. This is Natasha and The Dialogue Show, where I interview remarkable people. On the show today, I have Clive Burcham, who is a business impactor and social entrepreneur. If I were to ask you about your vices, what vice do you think you have?
Collecting things. So I have a mad collection of wine, sunglasses, all that kind of stuff. You know, I enjoy the creativity that goes behind certain things. Music, I'm a collector of, but probably more now life experiences with my kids. We travel. We're going to Norway. We're going ice caving and glacier walking. Then we're going to a global citizen festival in Hamburg where we see, which I'm involved in with Coldplay, the Chainsmokers, and Pharrell Williams. So my kids are, learning all the lyrics except for
the bad ones.
The bad ones, yeah. I'd say my vices are.
Well, collecting. I mean, you mentioned the word abundance, which I found was quite interesting because abundance is often used in a very positive way.
Yeah.
Abundance. When you talk about abundance, you talk about it in a positive way, but then you kind of linked abundance to your collections. And I asked you whether or not that that shopping, that experience was grounding for you. Like it must give you something.
I think abundance in, I've got a wine collection. I have abundance of, love in our house. We have beautiful things, but we also have beautiful times with lots of beautiful people who come into our house. I have an abundance of philosophies, and I have abundance of, care and hope and abundance of love. So I don't think it's...
so you said it was a beautiful, positive thing.
Yeah, and I used to shop a lot, but I don't anymore. So at the moment, I wear, surrounded by ghosts, black T-shirts and black pants. I've got 3 pairs of black pants and about 20 T-shirts, and that's all I wear. So I don't shop for clothes like I used to. I just have order. It's one less thing I think about in the morning. Let's
talk about your hat.
Yes.
Because your hat's really interesting.
Yes, like Boy George's.
It's yellow.
Yep.
It's actually an OzHarvest hat.
Yes.
As I said, I've interviewed Ronnie Khan on this show. She's an exceptional woman. The fact that she could actually change legislation so that you could take food from shops and different places to then nourish people who were disadvantaged is she's extraordinary. But you're very passionate about OzHarvest. You did the CEO cook-off. You're involved in the new store that they've got down on Anzac Parade, which I saw yesterday. Why OzHarvest? Why so passionate about that?
Efficacy. Ronnie is incredible, and the organisation is incredibly effective. And the other part is that I'm absolutely shocked that Australians are living in food insecurity. We have 24.5 million people, and we produce enough food for 61 million people. It's incredible. It's incredible that, we give away so much of our soil to foreign companies like the Indian coal mine, the Adani's company, but still we've got 3 million people living with food insecurity. And the problem with, all of us that have children is that 1 in 5 kids goes to school every day without food in their belly, and that means that they can't learn. Statistically, they don't learn as well as fed kids, and also it leads to depression and anxiety, and that's a crime against humanity in Australia. And greed equals poverty.
Absolutely. OzHarvest is not the only charity you're involved in. You've actually got a list that goes on. Global Citizens, which is Global Citizen, which is the event that you're going to in overseas. That's a charity, worldwide charity.
Yeah. So that was started in Australia by Hugh Evans, Simon Moss, and Wei So. And those guys are young. They're only in their kind of early 30s, and they started when they were in their 20s. And so it's a global platform to eradicate extreme poverty before 2030. And it's in the big lead. If anyone remembers the One campaign or Make Poverty History, it's much bigger than that.
Okay. So that's something you love. You're also involved with KidsXpress, which is about. You tell me what that's about, because that's very close to your heart.
Yeah. So, Margot Ward started KidsXpress about around the same time I started the Conscience organisation, and it basically is this amazing program for kids who are between 8 and 14. So basically, anyone who's been, abused or traumatized, they use music, art, and drama and modality therapy to take kids from being oppressed to expressed. It's an outstanding initiative because it's not a band-aid on a problem like alcoholism or alcohol rehabilitation is later on in life. She's nipping it in the bud early. So whilst it's great, the government gives hundreds of millions of dollars to, ICE rehab centres or whatever, and they should do that. They should also be getting those issues earlier through initiatives like KidsXpress. And likewise, I'm involved with Heal for Life, which is about older people, survivors, going through a different process, but again, healing people who've been abused, because it's not a nice thing to live with when you look at all the alcoholics and drug addicts and prostitutes out there. We could stop that.
You're listening to 89.7 FM Eastside Radio. This is Natasha and The Dialogue Show, where I interview remarkable people. On the show today, I have Clive Burcham, who is a business impactor and social entrepreneur. It's interesting. The abuse that you suffered is very much at your core, and I'm sure that you've done lots of work around it, and I'm sure that it's
still do.
Exactly. I don't think it ever kind of goes away. There is a part of you that unfortunately it kind of always owns. We've become so aware of sexual abuse through the media and through, it's changed a lot. We now feel comfortable having this conversation.
Yeah.
Where a brilliant businessman can sit in front of me and say, this is what's actually happened to me. How do we go about eradicating this problem? Because ultimately, so much of this is perpetrated by men. Men against women, men against children. How do we tackle that male psychology to change the way they behave?
Yeah. So it's a small percentage of men that do this. So
it is a small percentage, but normally,
Yeah.
Normally every single abuse case is usually perpetrated by a man. I mean, at least we can talk say 98%.
Yep. I'm not sure that that's the figure, but you have to say it is. I think awareness, and as you said, that it's okay to talk about it. I mean, I think probably in the not too distant future, in fact, I'm doing it right now, I will come out and talk more about it, because I want people who suffered abuse not to feel as though that's the way their life has to be forever, particularly young people. But how do you stop it? I think awareness, persecution, making the law easier, make it easier to persecute, and make those persecutions, let's say, on the extreme side, because the mental health problems cost Australia about $300 billion a year. $300 billion. What else could we do with that money? Spend it on infrastructure, education, the best medical advice and care that we could have, probably in the world. So I think that the first thing to do is nip it in the bud. If not at with the perpetrators or the predators, but certainly with treatment as children, like with KidsXpress.
You obviously have great plans for your future. You're a young man. You've got 2 young children. Have you got something really cool in your bucket list that is like on your list, and you're sitting there thinking, that's something that I really, really want to do?
Yep, picking my kids up at 3:00 today. So
that's a beautiful bucket list.
Yeah, that's my thing that I look forward to most in life, is being with my kids and sharing my life with them.
What's going to happen when your children grow up? Because they're going to grow up and they are going to leave you. And
well, we've made a pact. I mean, they're 7 and 9. We've made a pact that we've decided we're going to buy a 3-story house, and everyone gets a story, and they can come and go as they please. But if that doesn't work out, I guess I'll probably be quite an annoying father. I will want to know still want to be with them.
What about you pursuing love? What about you pursuing that adult relationship that you've kind of avoided pursuing since taking on the single parent lifestyle?
Well, first of all, I've done it in a purposeful way because I wanted to honour my children as best I can. I'm certainly open to it, but it's not something that I pursue, in an outward fashion. Probably because I'm too busy to actually stop and, talk to somebody. I mean, I have done, but
I imagine the women must actually like you, and you're so dynamic and you're so exciting to be around. You've got so much stuff on the go. You've got this beautiful attitude towards life. You love people, and you want to feed the world, and you want everyone to be happy, and you want it all to kind of work. You put a lot of pressure on yourself to make it, to make the world a better place, because it's a pretty hard job. So I imagine the women would see this and kind of go, "Oh my God, this is an amazing man. I'd love to be around him." Do you just not even notice? I mean, is your radar just off?
I don't notice. In fact, I'm with mates. Sometimes they go, "She's checking you out," and I go, "Really?" So yeah, I'm a bit of a nuff in that regard, and probably always have been that way. So, but maybe at 46 I can change.
Well, there's always the opportunity to be able to change. I think that's something that you have done since the beginning of your journey is change. We've actually come to the end of the interview because it goes so fast.
It does,
and I'm sure there's a whole lot of stuff that I've missed along the way. But you're so dynamic that it's been so wonderful to interview you, and I think it's an inspiration to other people that you can keep kind of reaching forward, keep investing in the universe and in people and loving your children, and take all those wonderful positive things. So I just want to say thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been great to share and to talk with you.
Yeah, and I look forward to watching your journey, and I'm really looking forward to that dinner invite because I really want to eat that Greek lamb.
Yep.
You're listening to 89.7 FM Eastside Radio. This is Natasha and The Dialogue Show. Today I've been interviewing Clive Burcham, a business impactor and social entrepreneur. I will be back next week with another incredible interview.